What are you doing in here?
I'm shopping with my daughter.
We received a call about someone who doesn't belong.
I belong wherever I have business.
Got ID to back that
I'm
up? Funny. People like you always have a story.
Some promises are easy to keep. You say you'll pick up dinner on the way home, and you do. You say you will make the school play, and you sit in the third row with your phone, already recording when the curtain goes up. Easy promises. The kind that cost you nothing but a cleared schedule and the basic willingness to show up. And then there are the other kind. The kind made in a hallway with a deployment bag over your shoulder and 11 months of absence stretched out ahead of both of you. The kind where you look your daughter in the eyes and say the words like a contract. When I get back, I'm taking you to pick out your prom dress. Not your mom, not your aunt, me. I will be there. This is the story of what happened when Senior Chief Andre Watkins tried to keep that promise. It is the story of a sales associate who made a phone call she had no business making from a back hallway with her hand cupped around the receiver. An officer who walked into a boutique dress shop and made every wrong choice available to him. A store owner who walked in at exactly the right moment and said exactly the right things. And a teenage girl in a lavender prom dress, barefoot on cold tile, watching her father lying in handcuffs 3 feet from a fitting room curtain. All of it was recorded. Every second. Multiple angles. No ambiguity whatsoever. And what those recordings set in motion would end 2 careers, cost the city nearly $600,000, and produce a photograph that reached 2 million shares in under a week with no caption, because no caption was needed. But we start at the beginning, because the beginning is where you understand what was actually at stake on that Saturday afternoon. Senior Chief Andre Watkins had been gone for 11 months. Not the kind of gone where you could send a text when you land. The genuinely unreachable kind. Encrypted communications, blacked out locations, missions that exist in records under designations that tell you nothing about what actually happened or where. He was 43 years old, active duty Navy SEAL, 18 years of special operations behind him. He had spent more of his adult life overseas than in his own home and had made peace with that trade long ago. Not easily, but with the clear-eyed acceptance of a man who chose his work knowing precisely what it required. What it required was missing things. He had missed his daughter Simone's 8th birthday, her 10th, her 13th. He had missed the evening she played piano in front of an audience for the first time, her hands trembling before the first note and completely steady by the last. He had missed the parent-teacher conference where Simone's AP history teacher addressed an empty chair and told the absence itself, that Simone was one of the most gifted students she had encountered in 20 years of teaching. He had missed all of it, not because he didn't care, because the work he did kept other families safe while his own waited. That is a trade that sounds honorable in the abstract and costs something real every single day it is being paid. Simone was 17 now, straight A student, focused and self-possessed in the way of teenagers who have developed a high tolerance for uncertainty. She kept a physical wall calendar in her room and crossed the days off with a red marker, one by one, every morning, the way sailors used to notch time into wood. She had been crossing days off for 11 months. Prom was in 2 weeks. She had not bought a dress. Her mom had offered. Her aunt had offered. A family friend had volunteered a full Saturday shopping trip, lunch included. Simone had thanked all of them warmly and declined all of them with the patient, immovable certainty of someone who has made a decision and is not going to be talked out of it. Before his deployment, Andre had made her one promise. One. He had looked her in the eyes in their hallway with his gear bag packed by the door and said, "When I get back, I'm taking you to pick out your dress. Not your mom, not your aunt, me." She had laughed and told him he didn't know the first thing about prom dresses. He said he didn't need to. He just needed to be there. She had believed him and spent 273 days waiting for him to be right. He came home on a Thursday afternoon. No ceremony, no uniform. Just Andre Watkins walking through the front door in jeans and a navy hoodie, setting his keys on the table, standing in the hallway of his home for the first time in almost a year. Simone came around the corner from the kitchen, saw him, and stopped for exactly 2 seconds, the way the mind does when something it has been wanting for so long that the wanting and the having look the same, and the brain needs a breath to confirm this is real. Then she ran into him hard enough to knock him back a step. She buried her face in his chest and sobbed without a word. He wrapped both arms around her and closed his eyes. He hadn't brought weapons home that day. No rank, no commendations, no weight of the things he had done and seen. Just the one thing, the promise. Saturday, he told her quietly, "We're going shopping." She pulled back and looked up at him, her face still wet. "You really don't know anything about prom dresses." "I really don't," he agreed. "But I will be there. That's the part that counts." Saturday afternoon, they pulled into the parking lot of Prestige Bridal Boutique in Cedarwood Hills, an upscale suburb about 20 minutes from their home. The boutique was sleek and polished, large windows showing mannequins draped in sequins and tulle catching the afternoon sun. Simone grabbed his arm the second they stepped out of the car and pulled him toward the entrance with the full-body enthusiasm of a 17-year-old who has been planning this specific moment in her head for months. He let himself be pulled. He had earned a right to be pulled towards something good. Inside was warm and beautiful. Crystal pendant lighting, soft piano music, racks of gowns organized by color and designer. The whole place smelled like cedar and something floral, and it was exactly the kind of space his daughter deserved to walk into on a Saturday afternoon and feel completely at home in. A few heads turned when they walked through the door. Brief glances, careful and practiced. A woman near the front display shifted her handbag to her other hand with a grip slightly tighter than it had been a moment ago. Two associates near the register exchanged something wordless that lasted less than a second. A third associate, a woman in her late 20s named Brittany Cole, walked over with a smile assembled with genuine effort that hadn't quite reached her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, her gaze settling on Andre a beat too long before moving to Simone. "Just looking for a prom dress," Simone said, already reaching for the nearest rack. Brittany nodded. She did not ask about colors or silhouettes. She did not offer to pull anything or guide them toward the fitting rooms the way she had guided the family ahead of them, with easy warmth and engaged questions and the helpfulness of someone actually doing their job. She stepped back. She watched. Andre noticed everything. 18 years of special operations had built his environmental awareness into something automatic and total. You do not decide to read a room. You simply read it the way you breathe, without effort, without the ability to turn it off. He noticed the way staff found reasons to assist other customers and reasons to be elsewhere when Simone reached for a rack. He noticed the exchange behind the register. He noticed the body language that recalibrated when he made eye contact. He filed all of it and set it aside. He was here for Simone. She was holding up a lavender gown and grinning at him, and that was the only thing that mattered. "What about this one, Dad? Try it on. That is exactly what we are here for." She disappeared behind the fitting room curtain, and Andre settled into the velvet chair outside it, legs crossed at the ankle, hands loose in his lap, watching the store with the patient awareness of a man who has been in places far more dangerous than this and knows precisely the difference between a situation that requires action and one that simply requires presence. From behind the curtain, her voice came through bright and completely untroubled. "Dad, how long do I spin? Slow and graceful or full dramatic?" He laughed softly. "Full dramatic. You only get one prom, Simone." She giggled. The curtain rustled. He leaned back in the velvet chair and let himself feel it, this specific, irreplaceable thing he had been away from for 11 months. His daughter's voice through a curtain. The ordinary Saturday afternoon miracle of being present for something small. He had no idea that 2 aisles away, Brittany Cole was already moving toward the back hallway. She waited until she was certain his attention was on the fitting room curtain. Then she walked to the phone mounted on the back wall, picked it up, dialed the non-emergency line, and spoke low with her hand cupped around the receiver. She told the dispatcher there was a suspicious male in the store. She said he didn't look like he belonged. She said she was concerned for the safety of her customers. The dispatcher asked for a description. Black male, tall, muscular build, wearing a hoodie. She did not mention that he had entered the store through the front door with his teenage daughter. She did not mention that he had spoken politely, touched nothing on the racks, and was sitting quietly in a chair waiting while his child tried on a dress. She described him the way her assumptions had already framed him, not as a customer, but as a situation. The dispatcher confirmed a unit would respond. Brittany hung up, smoothed her blouse, adjusted her expression to neutral, and walked back to the sales floor. She positioned herself near the front counter where she could observe without appearing to. 2 aisles away, Andre had no idea a patrol car was already in the parking lot. Now, before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand who was in that car. Because what Officer Derek Malloy did inside that boutique cannot be separated from who Derek Malloy had been allowed to keep being for 15 consecutive years. Malloy was 44 years old, 15 years on the Cedarwood Hills Police Department. His hand went to his belt before his feet hit the pavement. The reflex of a habit so deeply formed it happened below the level of thought, and it told you everything about what he believed his arrival was supposed to make people feel. Over 15 years, Malloy had accumulated 19 formal complaints. Racial profiling, excessive force, discriminatory stops, intimidation. 19 times someone had gone through the effortful, often re-traumatizing process of filing a formal complaint against him. 19 times Internal Affairs had reviewed it. 19 times it had been dismissed, downgraded, or closed without consequence. His supervisors called him assertive and results-driven. Residents in the Black and Latino neighborhoods of Cedarwood Hills had a more accurate vocabulary. They knew his car on sight. They warned their children. They crossed streets when they saw him coming and taught their teenagers to do the same. Not paranoia, but knowledge earned through experience. His partner, Officer Jamie Osei, 27 years old, stepped out of the passenger side and followed 2 paces behind. She had been partnered with Malloy for 7 months. In 7 months, she had never once questioned his judgment, never filed a supplemental report noting a concern, never put anything on record. She watched, followed, and stayed quiet. That silence was about to cost her. Malloy pushed through the glass door of Prestige Bridal with the unhurried confidence of a man who has never been held accountable for anything. His body camera was recording, the red light blinking steadily on his chest. The store was completely calm. Music playing, customers browsing, not a raised voice or visible disturbance anywhere. He scanned the room and found Andre Watkins in the velvet chair outside the fitting room. He adjusted his belt and walked toward him. He stopped 3 feet from the chair. No greeting, no introduction, no reason offered. Stand up, hand where I can see them. Andre's expression shifted in under a second, from relaxed to alert, the automatic activation of training. He kept his hands on the armrests. Open, visible. Is there a problem, officer? Stand up, hands where I can see them. Louder this time, sharp enough to cut through the piano music and turn heads across the store. From behind the curtain, Simone's voice came through smaller now. Dad, what's going on? Everything is fine, baby. Stay inside. Andre stood slowly, every movement deliberate and visible, his palms open at his sides, his body communicating everything cooperative looks like in the clearest possible terms. What are you doing in this store? Shopping with my daughter. She's trying on a prom dress. Who are you with? My daughter. She is right behind that curtain. You have receipts? We have not purchased anything yet. She is still trying things on. That is what fitting rooms are for. Can you prove you're a customer? Pause here, because this question sounds procedural and is not. Andre had walked in through the front door, been present for 20 minutes, touched nothing, disturbed no one. His daughter was 3 feet away on the other side of curtain. There was no probable cause. No reasonable suspicion. No articulable legal basis for any part of this interaction. Not one element. These are not questions. They were accusations wearing the costume of procedure, and the man receiving them knew exactly what they were. You fit a description we received, Malloy said. I need to see some ID. Andre exhaled slowly through his nose and reached toward his back pocket with his right hand. Slowly, deliberately, every movement announced and visible. Malloy grabbed his wrist. Immediate. Hard. Slow. Real slow. I'm going slow, Andre said quietly, his eyes on Malloy. I am reaching for my wallet. That is all. Osei stood 4 feet to the left, hand on her radio, watching everything, saying nothing. The fitting room curtain moved. Simone pulled it open and stepped out barefoot onto the boutique floor. She was wearing the lavender gown, the hem sweeping around her ankles, her hair pinned up the way she had been practicing for 2 weeks, her face carrying the luminous joy of a 17-year-old who has just found the dress. She looked like the very beginning of the best night of her life. Then she saw her father, Andre Watkins, a man who had survived operations in 4 countries, who had carried wounded teammates through live fire, who had made decisions under conditions most people cannot imagine, was standing with his wrist locked in a police officer's grip, 3 feet from the chair where he had been sitting 60 seconds ago. The joy left Simone's face like a light going out. Her mouth opened. Her hands came up slightly at her sides, the involuntary reach of a child toward a parent, the body's first language. Before she could speak, Malloy turned his head toward her. "Stay right there. Don't move," he said in the same flat tone he'd been using on her father. The tone you use on a suspect, not on a 17-year-old girl in a prom dress who just stepped out of a fitting room to show her father how she looks. She flinched, half a step back, eyes filling instantly, and Andre's voice changed. It was the only moment in 11 minutes where the discipline of 18 years showed what it was made of, because what came through was not uncontrolled anger. It was something beneath anger. Harder, more precise. The specific register of a man who has held everything together through things that would break most people and has just discovered the one thing that reaches below all of that. His child. "Do not talk to my daughter like that." Malloy registered it as aggression. He let go of Andre's wrist, grabbed his shoulder with both hands, and spun him around. Andre's chest hit the mirrored wall beside the fitting rooms. The glass fractured outward in a clean spiderweb from the point of impact. Malloy forced him into a spread position, palms flat against the cracked mirror, legs apart, and pressed close behind him. Simone screamed, not a teenage scream of surprise. The sound of a child watching something happen to her parent that her mind cannot process or accept. It went through the entire store like a current, cutting through the piano music and every other sound in the space. A woman near the accessories wall pulled her daughter behind her and turned them away. A man near the front window froze with a garment bag in his hand, mouth open. Osei stood to the side, hand on radio, eyes moving between Malloy and the growing collection of witnesses, and did nothing. Brittany Cole stood behind the counter with her arms crossed and her face arranged into neutrality and did not move. The whole store had gone silent. Malloy did not stop at the wall. He pulled Andre back by the collar of his hoodie and forced him down, first to his knees, then flat on his stomach on the polished tile. He drove his knee into the center of Andre's back and pressed his full weight down. The tile was cold against Andre's cheek. Andre did not resist. His hands were open. His body was still. His breathing was controlled with the discipline of someone who has spent 18 years in situations where the wrong reaction gets people killed, where every instinct in trained muscle screams to move, and the override has been practiced so many times that the override has become its own instinct. Every capability his body possessed was available to him. He chose not to use a single one. "I am not resisting," he said. His voice was steady and strained under the weight of the knee. "My daughter is watching. Please." Malloy said nothing. He pulled Andre's wrist together behind his back and snapped the handcuffs shut. The metallic click traveled through the silent store like something final. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The piano music kept playing. And then Simone broke. She let out a sob from somewhere deep and structural. The sound of a child whose world has just shifted in a way she cannot make right with any reasoning available to her. She stood on the cold boutique floor in her bare feet, in a lavender gown, mascara running down both cheeks, hands shaking at her sides. Looking at her father, the man who crossed 11 months and 3 continents specifically to stand in a velvet chair and tell her full dramatic, "You only get one prom," lying face down in handcuffs 3 feet from the curtain she had just stepped through. Around her, witnesses were responding the way people do when something undeniably wrong is happening and they're still in the moment before they know what they're allowed to do about it. A woman near the front pulled her daughter close and whispered something and turned them both away from the scene. An older black woman near the accessories wall, maybe 65, wearing a rust-colored blouse, had gone completely still with her phone raised and her hand steady and her face carrying the contained fury of someone who has seen this particular shape of wrong before and has decided that this time every second of it will be on record. She did not lower the phone. She did not look away. A man in his mid-30s near the shoe display, wearing a faded sweatshirt with a military insignia, stepped forward. His voice was loud and entirely without hesitation. "He hasn't done anything. What are you doing?" Malloy snapped his head toward him. "Step back. Now." Osei spoke for the first time. "Sir, please give us space." But she was looking at the witness. Not at Malloy. Not at the man face down on the floor with a knee in his back. She was asking the room to move. She was managing the witnesses, not the situation. And in that specific choice, in that specific moment, she was making a decision about which side of this she was standing on. Then Malloy searched him, right there on the floor, in front of his daughter, in front of every customer in the store, in front of every camera that was running. He went through Andre's pockets one item at a time and placed each thing on the tile beside his face like evidence from a crime scene. A wallet, a phone, car keys on a worn leather keychain, and a piece of paper folded many times. The fold lines softened to the texture of fabric from being opened and refolded many times over many months in many places. Malloy opened the paper without asking. The handwriting was a teenager's, slightly uneven, written in purple ink with the careful legibility of someone who wanted it to be readable no matter where it ended up. "Come home safe, Daddy. I'll save you a dance at prom." Malloy looked at it for less than 2 seconds. Then he dropped it on the floor beside Andre's face. The way you drop a receipt you don't need. Simone saw it fall. Her hand went to her mouth. She had written that note the night before his deployment. She had slipped it into his jacket pocket while he was loading his gear bag. He had found it on the plane and kept it in his inside pocket for 11 months across 3 continents. Through every briefing, every mission, every long stretch of silence when home felt very far away. It was on a boutique floor now, next to a knee and a pair of handcuffs. Malloy opened the wallet. Driver's license, credit cards, debit card, and a military ID, official government-issued, exclusive to active duty service members, bearing a photograph and a rank and a service record that told with complete clarity exactly who the man on the floor was. Malloy held it up, studied it, turned it over, looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked down at Andre and said the words that his body camera was recording, and that the older woman's phone was recording, and that the ceiling cameras were capturing from 3 separate angles simultaneously. "Anybody can buy one of these online," he said. "You'd be surprised how many guys like you fake being in the military." He placed the ID on Andre's back like it was nothing. Like the man beneath, it was nothing. Somewhere in the store, someone gasped audibly, and Andre lay still on the cold tile, his daughter's note beside his face, his military ID on his back, the weight of a knee on him. 18 years of service called a probable fake by a man who had spent 15 years doing the opposite of serving. 3 recordings. Crystal audio. No ambiguity. No missing angles. The front door opened at 3:41 in the afternoon. Gerald Ashford came in carrying a takeout bag and a coffee. 66 years old, silver-haired, 29 years the owner of this building. He stopped 4 steps through the door. A black man was face down on his floor in handcuffs. A teenage girl in a lavender prom dress stood nearby, barefoot, sobbing. 2 officers stood over them. A dozen customers pressed against the walls, several with phones raised. No one shopping. No one speaking. The store smelled like expensive perfume and something that had no right to be there. Gerald set everything down on the nearest display table with the precise movements of someone managing a powerful reaction and managing it with skill. Then he walked directly toward Malloy. No ruse, no raised voice. The authority of a man who has owned the room he is standing in for 29 years. "What's happening in my store?" "Sir, we received a call about a suspicious individual. We are handling it." Gerald turned to Brittany Cole. Her face had gone pale in the way of someone on whom the full weight of a decision has just finished arriving. "Did you make that call?" Brittany's mouth opened. I thought. Gerald turned back to Malloy. His voice didn't rise. It simply became more precise. The kind of precision that is more effective than volume. "This man is a customer. He is here with his daughter. She's trying on a prom dress. You have him in handcuffs on the floor of my establishment, with no legal justification of any kind that I can see. I have cameras on every wall in this building. Remove those handcuffs right now. Sir, we are in the middle of... Gerald took one step forward, measured, unhurried. You are in the middle of a disgrace on my floor. You have 5 seconds to remove those handcuffs, or I call the chief of police from where I'm standing, on speaker, in front of everyone in this room and every camera on these walls. I have known him for 22 years. When he sees what my cameras have recorded, the next call you receive will not be one you want to take. The room held its breath. Every phone still recording. Every witness still watching. The only sound was Simone crying. Malloy reached down and unlocked the cuffs. Left wrist first, then right. Slowly, the deliberateness of a man performing compliance while trying not to let it look like what it was. Andre stayed on the floor for one full breath after his wrists were free. One complete, deliberate breath. Taking inventory. Resetting. Then he pressed his palms flat against the tile and pushed himself up. He rose slowly. His wrists were red and swelling. His hoodie was scuffed. His cheek had the faint impression of the tile floor. His dignity had been dismantled in front of his daughter in a room full of strangers and multiple cameras. He stood anyway, completely upright, chin up, shoulders back. The posture of a man who has stood in the presence of things trying to break him and has not been broken. Before he could turn around, Simone was already there. She crossed the distance in 2 steps and pressed herself into his chest, still in the lavender dress, still barefoot, her face buried in him the way it had been buried in him 4 days ago in the hallway when he came home. She grabbed fistfuls of his hoodie and pressed her forehead into him and held on. He wrapped both arms around her. "It's okay, baby," he said quietly. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." She sobbed harder. The full body release of someone whose fear has finally been given permission to leave. Gerald turned to Brittany Cole. His voice was not raised, not emotional, simply final. "Get your things. You are finished here." She blinked. "Mr. Ashford, I was only trying to..." "You called the police on a father shopping with his daughter in my store. There is nothing after that sentence that changes what it says. Get your things. Leave your keys on the counter. Do not come back." She looked around the room for someone who would offer her a different outcome. She found no one. She walked to the back without another word. They stayed for another 30 minutes. Gerald brought stock from the back that hadn't been put on the floor yet. He brought Simone water in the large fitting room at the end of the hall. He sat beside Andre, while Simone tried dress after dress on the other side of the curtain. She came out in emerald green, floor length, fitted at the waist, a skirt that moved when she walked. She stood in front of the 3-way mirror and looked at herself, and then she looked at her father in the mirror behind her. Andre stood up from the chair. He looked at his daughter in that dress, in that mirror, in the store where 40 minutes ago he had been face down on the tile in handcuffs while she stood crying in bare feet. "That is the one," he said. "That is absolutely the one." Outside in the parking lot, Malloy and Osei were still in their cruiser completing paperwork when the first call came from their supervisor. Then the second. Then the third from the chief of police directly, who had been watching the body camera footage upload to the department server in real time. Both officers were placed on administrative leave before they left the parking lot. By that evening, Gerald Ashford had sent copies of all store recordings to the police department, the county attorney, and his own attorney. He had also, after a conversation with Andre, provided a copy to a journalist he had known and trusted for years with a specific request that it be handled responsibly and published in full. The journalist published it that night. By the following morning, it had been viewed more than 5 million times. Internal Affairs opened Monday morning. Commander Vivian Clark, 26 years on the force, a record of findings that consistently reflected the evidence regardless of where it pointed, was assigned the case. She started with everything, all 5 recordings. Then she pulled Malloy's complete service record. What she found was not surprising, but it was damning in a way the number 19 does not fully convey until you lay all 19 complaints side by side and look at them as one document rather than 19 separate incidents. Every single complainant was a person of color. Not one white individual had ever filed a complaint against Malloy. Not one. And every complaint had been reviewed individually by different supervisors on different days, with no one ever placing them next to each other and asking the obvious question. Commander Clark placed them next to each other and asked. Then she pulled the body camera footage from every complaint that had footage attached. One case, a young black man stopped while jogging in a residential area at 7 in the morning. Malloy's report described aggression requiring a takedown. The body camera showed a cooperative man in running clothes who answered every question and stood still throughout. Detained 31 minutes. Complaint dismissed. Footage showed nothing described in the report. Another case, a Hispanic woman stopped while reading in a parked car. Malloy's report described suspicious surveillance of a nearby business. The body camera showed a woman reading a paperback novel who was startled by the knock on her window and remained cooperative for the entire 22-minute stop. Complaint dismissed. Footage showed a woman reading a book. Case after case. Written reports describing behavior that justified force. Body camera footage contradicting the written reports. Complaints reviewed in isolation. Dismissals issued. Files closed. A pattern growing undisturbed across 15 years and 19 separate folders that no one had ever laid side by side until now. Commander Clark's report was 68 pages. Her conclusion was direct and unhurried and did not soften for anyone's comfort. Officer Derek Malloy has operated within a system that protected him by treating each incident as its own story rather than as a chapter in a longer one. The pattern is not subtle. It has never been subtle. It simply was never looked for. Her recommendations: immediate termination, criminal referral, and a full departmental audit of how complaint investigations have been conducted and closed for the preceding 10 years. Officer Jamie Osei received a separate finding. Her failure to intervene, her 7 months of filing no supplemental reports despite being present during multiple incidents, and her active management of witnesses rather than the situation in the boutique all constituted violations of her duty to report. Suspended 40 days without pay, mandatory retraining, 18 months of supervised probation. Commander Clark included one line specifically about Osei that I want you to carry with you. The officer who watches and remains silent does not remain neutral. Silence during misconduct is a form of participation. It must be treated as such without exception. Malloy was terminated within 72 hours, the fastest termination in the department's history. Criminal charges followed: assault, unlawful restraint, official misconduct, and civil rights violations under state and federal law. He was arrested, processed, and released on bond. The federal civil rights lawsuit named Malloy personally, Osei personally, and the city of Cedarwood Hills as an institution, specifically for its 15-year failure to identify a documented pattern that had been hiding in plain sight inside 19 individual folders that no one had ever placed side by side. The city's legal team reviewed the evidence package: 5 recordings, a 68-page internal affairs report, 19 prior complaints with body camera footage contradicting the written accounts, 2 criminal defendants, and a plaintiff whose service record was so extensively documented it had already become a central element of the public story, and initiated settlement discussions within 2 weeks. The settlement was $575,000, plus mandatory reforms that Andre's attorney had drafted in specific, enforceable language and refused to negotiate on a single clause. Complete revision of use of force policy with mandatory input from civil rights organizations. Quarterly pattern analysis of all incidents by a dedicated unit with authority to flag individual officers regardless of whether individual complaints have been sustained. Annual implicit bias and de-escalation training with scenario-based assessments rather than written tests. An independent civilian oversight board with subpoena power and unrestricted access to all body camera footage. Automatic referral to the county attorney for any officer accumulating 3 or more complaints within any rolling 24-month period. And mandatory partner intervention training, specifically targeting the legal and professional obligations of officers who witness misconduct, so that what Jamie Osei had done for 7 months could never again be described as simply keeping the peace. Full public disclosure of all use of force complaint data for the preceding 12 years. Not summaries. Complete records. Officer names. Complaint details. Demographic breakdowns. Everything that had been invisible inside individual files, permanently visible to anyone who chose to look. An independent monitor appointed. Biannual public reports. No expiration date. Now let me tell you about the 2 weeks between that Saturday and prom night. The morning of prom, a handwritten card arrived by courier. It said, "You are exactly the kind of young woman this world needs more of. Whatever they threw at you, you're still standing in your dress. Shine tonight." Signed with initials only. Simone read it in the kitchen in her robe, her hair half done, and folded it carefully and put it next to the note she had written her father. The one in purple ink, the one that had been on a boutique floor and was now back in his pocket, and kept both together. A veteran named James Holloway, who had found Andre's contact through a veterans network after watching the video, sent flowers that morning. The arrangement was simple. The card said only, "From one service family to another." Semper Fi. That evening, a family friend came to the front porch to take photographs before the car arrived. Simone in emerald green, the skirt moving when she walked. Her hair exactly as she had practiced. Her face carrying the particular luminosity of someone who has been through something genuinely hard and come out more themselves than before. Andre beside her in his dress whites. Every decoration in its correct position. His chin high, his shoulders back. Not performing it, just wearing it the way something belongs to you after you have earned it completely. Her hand on his arm. Both of them looking directly into the camera. Together. Forward. The photo was posted that night with no caption. 2 million shares in 5 days. It needed no caption. The image contained everything. The father who came home, the daughter who saved him a dance, the promise that held across 11 months and 3 continents, and a boutique floor in Cedarwood Hills, and everything that had been thrown at both of them in between. The Monday after prom, a training bulletin circulated through every officer in the Cedarwood Hills Police Department. It contained one image, a still frame from Malloy's body camera, the exact moment Simone stepped through the fitting room curtain. A teenage girl in a lavender prom dress, barefoot, her face just beginning to understand what she is seeing. Her hands starting to reach for her father without meaning to. Under the image, 6 words. This is what failure looks like. No names printed, no case number, no policy reference. Just the image and the words, sent to every officer in the department as the opening item of a mandatory new training curriculum that began that week. They didn't need the names. The careers were already gone. And across town, in a house with a wall calendar that no longer needed red marks through it, a girl in an emerald dress was saving her father a dance.